Hey, what's up? It's your buddy, Scott. We just got done watching Devil's Doll on a haunting on Travel Channel, which I got to be a part of. You might notice that I changed the background from blue to red because we're going to have a discussion about haunted objects. And, the red is better than blue, I think. How's everybody doing? Lost my voice a little bit today, but that's okay. We're going to talk. Oh no, my desk is haunted. What's going on? Hi there. Hey, Amy Carter. How are you? Nice to see you there. So, let me know if you tuned in to watch a haunting tonight about the haunted dolls. Myself and Pen Paranormal we're doing. Hey, everybody. Yep, we're going to talk about haunted objects and the Devil's Doll. It's going to be fun. I wonder if I can find Pen Paranormal. Let's see if we can find them. Hey, what's up? It was on just now, and you can watch it again on Discovery Plus. So if you have Discovery Plus and you like paranormal TV shows, what the hell was that? You go watch it, which is fun. It was great. I'm not going to sleep, but it was great. Oh, thanks so much. I'm glad you liked it. It was a lot of fun. What am I sipping? Just water. Just water today. I have a busy weekend, so no adult beverages this weekend. Yeah, so if you're into paranormal TV shows, they did a really great job, I think. The actor who played me was probably about 15 years older than me, but I guess that's what they had. And he seems like a nice guy. He did a pretty good job. He did thanks. He did the old, who here likes the TV show Psych? Do I have any fellow psychos here? Like me, like myself? The actor who played me on TV did the old, I'm picking something up, which I love. I don't really ever do that myself. It's going good. How are you? I felt like, come on, son. Yes. Megan says, how'd you feel about your appearance? I liked it. I enjoyed it. The day that we shot it, I really liked it. I really was having a lot of fun. The producer who was there that day, did a fantastic job. Her name is Kay. We're buddies now. She's the one helping me develop a TV show for myself. So that's a little bit of a cat out of the bag. So we have a TV show for myself written up, and we're just trying to shop it around and see who might want to make it with us. And hopefully that'll be something fun to do. Thanks very much. So if you watched the episode of The Devil's Doll, what was your favorite part? Hi, Scott. Someone on Instagram contact. Yeah, I know I've got the scammer accounts are everywhere. I apologize. Just know that on Instagram and TikTok or Facebook, I'll never slide into your DMs and ask you to do a reading for you. I'll never call you your beloved, and I'll never say that I'm going to contact your ancestors. That's for sure. Thanks so much. Aw, thanks, Meg. Yeah, I think that was a good start for a lot of cool stuff that's coming up. So I appreciate everybody. If you have any questions about the episode, if there's anything you want to know, if you want to hop on and co-host, don't be afraid to hit the ask button, the little co-host button down there. See, come on, just get ready. You got to be ready to talk though. Yay! Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks. I think we have a lot of new followers here. We've been growing a lot, like I think almost 15,000 followers in like a week and a half. So thanks. Awesome. I appreciate it. It means my videos that I've been making are resonating and bringing some of you in. Something that's been very popular that I talk about is letting your loved ones know that it's okay to visit you during your sleeping hours after they passed. It's creepy if they do it while they're still alive. I mean, they can if you want and you're okay with it. But it's specifically like a meditation for letting your loved ones know that when they pass, that they have the ability and the permission, more to the point, to be able to come and talk to you. Kim Williams wants to know if Mary Jo still has the doll. She does. It's locked up in a case very similar to the one that keeps the Annabelle doll at the Warren's Museum. It's basically the same kind of construction. It has blessed holy oil, and it stays in the case. It doesn't get opened. Because if that doll were to get out, what is attached to it could be even more pissed off and angry. Um, and be worse. So it was interesting as while we were filming that, the doll had not actually been placed into the case yet. So when I was saying that I was having difficulty concentrating during the interview because the entity attached to that doll, although it was an hour and a half away from us in Pennsylvania, we were in New Jersey filming, it was trying to confuse me. It was kind of breathing down my neck, putting pressure on me, and it kept showing itself to me to kind of throw me off my game and stop talking about it, because when negative things get spoken about, they don't like that. They don't want people to know their presence. So that's what they do. The spirit was not banished. No, it's with it. It's in the case, in the doll. It's very rare to me to find an object that is like really haunted. So when they ask me to be a part of the case, I always go into it like I go into everything. I believe what the person is telling me, which was very little. But when somebody presents something to me and they say, hey, could you read this for us and let us know what you think? Clearly, I know that there's an intention that they think that there's something attached to it. That goes out the window, right? But I hardly ever come up with anything that is significant. So when I started reading the dolls, the red flags were going off. There was definitely an issue. And everything that I said in the interview, plus more that didn't make it, was very true. Yeah, that's why we got to keep it locked up. So it's very important. So I'll answer some of these questions. I'm not going to do any readings, but I'll answer some questions for you. Danny says, my husband passed in December. I'm so sorry to hear about that. From COVID. Does he know that he has passed? Absolutely. It's very rare that I come across any spirits that passed that didn't know that they were passed. Yeah, I hope you liked the doll episode. That's what it was. This is my buddy Slimer. I brought him because I was like, I don't have any haunted dolls. I have this Slimer that I got. He's pretty awesome. What's going on? So anybody, sorry for anybody who lost a loved one recently. I feel bad. I'm sorry for you. They're okay. I would love for you to be my husband. Sorry, I can't be your husband. I'm very happily married. Slimer is here for our protection. He always is. He's a nice guy. Thanks. He's a neat Slimer. He hangs out. He keeps me company while I'm doing readings down here at my desk. And I don't have any haunted dolls, so I was like, I need something like a little prop to bring with me to my desk today. Amy Kish says, have you seen what a demon looks like? Yeah, a couple of them. I've come face to face with some pretty nasty things. Normally, they don't look the same. They have a hard time mimicking to look like what a human looks like, so they usually have some deformities. Parts of them are missing normally. They smell bad. And they normally, and I don't know how to explain this to people, but they're like schoolyard bullies. They will intimidate by getting very close, and they will get very angry, and they will bring all of their worst features out to the person they're trying to intimidate in order to break them down and start affecting them emotionally and physically. So I know that that's what their tactic is, so I don't get wound up in it. If you're not ready for it, it will come for you like that. Yeah, they look like gremlins sometimes. That would be a good way to describe it. Scaly skin, bad teeth, a lot of times. And it's because they don't really know how they're supposed to look, I think. So, hey, what's up, Para Nicole? How are you? If you want to come on, Para Nicole, hit the little guest button down there. I'll bring you on. We can chat. Oh, you don't want me to be your husband. Oh, okay. That's good. I can't take any more marriage proposals right now. Do you know me, Mystical Parker? I see you there. Hi, do some spirits not know they're deaf? I don't know that they would be deaf. because they can feel what we're thinking too. They have like a telepathy sort of thing. So I don't think being deaf would matter. What TV show? A Haunting on Travel Channel and Discovery Plus. It's the latest episode of A Haunting, season 11, episode 8, I believe it was. So you see them, you can feel them. Can you smell them? Yep. It smells like sulfur sometimes. Yep. It smells like rotten breath. If you've ever smelled super hot garbage, sometimes that's what they smell like. Oh, it's disgusting. It's enough to make you want to throw up. Rudy says she's had dreams about my deceased husband trying to tell me something. So if you couldn't physically hear him in the dream, what I'd do is when you wake up from those dreams where he's trying to tell you something, write down your emotions that you have when you woke up and just write. Don't really think about it. Just write everything that you're feeling and let it outpour, and you will find the message in there. Trust me, that will work for you. Super hot garbage, right? Hey, Twin Tarot, if you want to go live with me, let me know. Yes, they used an older actor to portray me. He did a good job though. My buddy Brian texted me. He's like, "Yo, this guy's like 15 years older than you," and I said, "I know, but he's still handsome and he did a good job." I hardly ever tuck my shirt in, like for funerals and communions. That's it. Otherwise, my shirts stay untucked. Margaret's okay. Margaret was very nice and sweet. She had a small child attachment, and she was very loving. And she spent a lot of time trying to protect Mary Jo. I know we didn't cover that because that wasn't much of the shock factor, but certainly that doll was okay. I've had a Norse deity been calling out to me. I can't figure out who it is. Could be a what do they call them? Like I don't want to call it a spirit guide, but they have the Norse religion has a different term for it. But whatever their idea of like a spirit guide is, might be who's calling out to you. I have something like that as well. It's a very I don't know what the right word for it is, like a water sign sort of deity that speaks, but it's interesting. I haven't really talked with it because it makes me a little uncomfortable. Not in a bad way, it's just not for me. Me and Chip Coffee should collaborate. Maybe someday. He's a nice guy. I've met him a couple times. Pretty super nice dude. Maybe. Tell you some stuff the show didn't cover. They did a pretty good job. And the stuff that they didn't cover on purpose because there was some tea to be spilled. With the guy who sold the dolls, he kind of, in my opinion, and this is my opinion and mine alone, he intentionally did nasty things to those dolls, like what I call the reverse baptism. So if anybody who doesn't know what a baptism is in the Christian religion, is basically you denounce somebody, your godparents denounce the devil for you. It's basically an exorcism for a baby, and that is what it is. It's the same sort of ritual. So what this gentleman did, I think, when I was tuning into the dolls, is I could see somebody intentionally being angry at the dolls, potentially making the dolls possessed, and then trying to get them to perform things for them. So, when you watch people here on TikTok and they have a doll and they're like, make the K2 meter light up, make the K2 meter light up, Slimer. And Slimer's like, shit, I don't know how to do that. And then they're like, do it. And they get really pissed off. Well, that can turn that pretty benign entity into something more negative. So we have to be careful when we're doing those sorts of things. And I think that's sort of what happened. What episode was the doll episode on? It was on tonight. It was episode 8. I saw you on Sam and Colby's YouTube channel. Yep, that's me, Sam and Colby. I was at the Shanley Hotel with those fine young men. Man, I never really think back in my life and be like, I wish I was 20 years younger. But let me tell you something, kids. If you're about 20, 22, somewhere in there, you got the world at your fingertips. Get out there. The social media stuff, if you can figure it out, you're gonna nail it. You can go, the world is yours. Is this a money thing? Mystical, I'm not collecting money. I'm not doing readings. I don't think you've heard me do any readings at all. I'm not doing readings. I'm just hanging out talking about the spirit stuff and the episode and telling you about a little bit more about who I am. What's up, Mom Daddy? Good afternoon to you too. Oh, Amy says you're about my age. You're about 40. Hey, Brianna, nice to see you there. Brianna's getting married soon. Happy marriage. Congratulations. Oh, it's okay, Mystic Parker. I just want to let you know. Oh, Katie Crumpton. Oh, what's up, TikTok Ghostbuster? How are you? Um, if you like Ghostbusters, which obviously, I do, follow TikTok Ghostbuster. He's funny, does a lot of funny skits. And if you want really beautiful artwork, I have Katie's artwork right there next to my favorite Ghostbuster poster. So if you like those kinds of things, you should follow her. She does great original artwork, paranormal kind of stuff, and all other good stuff. Your mom is definitely happy. Yeah, you will see your dad again. If not from now when in life, if he's passed, you'll see him when you pass. They always come and get you. Oh, Kindred Spirits is a good show. I like that. Yeah, it's called A Haunting, not The Haunting. That's a different show. A Haunting with an A. What show? I was on tonight. I was on A Haunting on Travel Channel. It was a lot of fun. I just thought I would come on and tell everybody about how it was. Your husband had you read random people at the grocery store. Spot on. Yeah, it's fun. That's a fun little way to do it. Well, we could talk about that when we do our TikTok live there, Mr. Ghostbuster. What I want to say. I saw something that I wanted to say. When people open up their gifts, their mediumship abilities and psychic gifts, it's not just about the reading. You have to have a certain amount of decorum and a certain amount of empathy and a way to handle somebody because, when you walk up to somebody and you talk to them about their deceased loved ones, it could be their mom, their dad, their best friend, their child, and you have to be able to handle the emotions that are going to come back at you from talking to that person about their loved ones. Many times it's good stuff, but sometimes it's so heavy and you have to be able to deal with that. I've had a whole entire lifetime of things, so I'm fairly confident what I do now. But yeah, so just be careful when you're doing that. That's where the trouble can come in. In your episode of Paranormal 911, was that real or were you just acting? Nope, that was real. That totally happened. I was on duty and I was completely caught off guard by the things that were happening. I was not thinking paranormal. I'm thinking, law enforcement stuff. And yeah, that was really a pretty unnerving situation because I want to help the person who's calling for help and I have to make sure that they're mentally stable and that I'm okay. So there's all kinds of factors that go into that, but it was definitely scary. Mystical says, was I impressed with the show? Yeah, I think they did a good job. Thanks. Was that the worst entity I came across? Not yet. No, it wasn't. It's one of the worst in the top 3. It was definitely nasty, but luckily I didn't have to spend any time with it. So it's not like I was investigating a property or a home. We knew what it was attached to, so I could limit my interaction with it. I basically validated for Mary Jo that things were happening with it, and then I was able to disconnect from it. Whereas if I'm called in to investigate a home, I might have to be there for several days and immerse myself in it, and that's when you can get in trouble. What's up there, Issa Rosa? You're up at all hours too, huh? My gift started while I was pregnant with my first daughter. I haven't figured out if my gift is real. You just got to trust yourself, validate, and write things down. With your gifts, why so public? Everybody has sort of a calling of things. I feel like I have a penchant of being able to sit in front of people and publicly speak. I don't have a fear of being ridiculed, and I always want to make sure that I'm putting a positive spin and light on the things that I can do and giving other people confidence in what they can do. So I always say to people, you may not want to step out to the light like I do to do this, but for you, it's good to understand that you can do it and you should feel good doing it. And it's an okay thing to do. So that's my lot in life. I have a thick enough skin to take any judgment that people are throwing at me, or shade as the kids say. I do not. Nope. Nicole says with law enforcement stuff, do you get called on for missing people or children cases? Nope. Law enforcement stays 100% just the facts, black and white, and the paranormal stuff is the paranormal stuff. The two worlds do not ever touch each other. I don't let them. Maybe once I'm retired from my day job, I can go down that road. But right now, they don't intersect, and that's for very specific reasons. I am. Yep, I'm still a part of that. And some of and I can't talk too much about it because we have a very strict social media policy at our department, so I don't want to overstep or get myself in trouble. But I obviously I mean that's what I do. I wanted to be a law enforcement officer since I was a kid. I knew it was going to be something I did in my life. But only good police work will solve those crimes and murders and all the terrible things. You need good police work to do that. But to solve the paranormal, you need somebody who has that sort of mindset, but also somebody who understands that there is more than just what's in front of us when it comes to the supernatural and paranormal. So, I hope that answers your question. Thanks, Nicole. Tell your husband I said stay safe as well. Yeah, got to keep them separated. Yeah, come on there, TikTok Ghostbuster. Let me see if can I invite you on here. How's that work? Let me see. I sent you an invite, bud. It's nice to see you. Talk Ghostbusters is going to come on with us.
Yeah, I am here. Just 1 second.
There it is.
There we go.
What's up, dude?
Not much. Not much. I'm finding this all very fascinating.
Yeah, well, from the world of pretend ghost busting to talking to somebody who says that maybe that's a real thing.
I have just as a passionate interest in paranormal investigation as Dan Aykroyd is, because his family was huge in it. So
Yeah,
I'd like what you do is like I've done that a few times, and it's very, very insanely fun and educational. So it's like I was asking him, like, have you ever tried using like EMF or batteries to induce more activity, or magnets? I heard help anchor things. So
yeah. So
yeah,
I actually have in my cabinet of actual
yep,
tools.
yep,
I have what they call an EMF
yep,
pump,
yep.
and that's what we use to create more activity if we're looking for it, which I highly
Okay.
don't recommend.
No, 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 no. It's weird because we did a test at a local bar here in Calgary, Alberta, that's been shut down for over 14 years due to overactivity. And
Whoa.
we did a test on it, and I've never had it where the whole room goes dark. So it was almost like a veil going over your eyes, or somebody covering your eyes.
Yeah.
And the entity just got really insanely strong. And I guess I'm interested. I'm not really. I'm a vankman. I'm just like
Yeah.
let's see what happens. So it's weird though, because it knew I wasn't scared, but it knew the other people were, so it went after them. So it's weird because they kind of put a veil over top, which is really interesting because I've never really delved into why an entity would do that. So that's a new one for me.
Wait, so the physical person put a veil over somebody's head or a spirit?
No, no, no. The spirit, literally, because the only way that I can describe it, either the whole room, because my perception, the whole room went dim, right?
Yeah.
Super dark. But everybody that I talked to thereafter said the room didn't go dark. It's just activity picked up. So I'm wondering if I had like something putting hands over my face kind of deal, uh, you know,
Yeah.
trying to make me stop from seeing what's going on. So
So that's really interesting because a lot of the paranormal activity that I look at on camera often involves black mists or things that we can't understand.
oh yeah,
And I myself have seen those sorts of things in person, and it's just like what you said. It's almost like a weird black fog, and it's like it makes everything look dim. I caught it on camera at the Shanley Hotel the first night there. Something just kind of went
yeah,
right in front of the light of the camera, and it blocked I'm trying to do it now, and it blocked everything out,
yeah,
and it was so strange. I didn't realize it until I watched it back and I was like, oh, the lights didn't dim. Something went in front of the light.
yeah.
That's
No,
interesting. Yeah.
it was really weird because, like, yet again, not afraid of this entity because I felt the other type of entities. This was more like a human echo, right? Or a human that was there. There was, I think there was one echo or repeater in Ghostbuster
Yep.
terminology, so an imprint. And then there was a couple of entities, but they were sentient enough to interact with us, but they were not malevolent enough to do anything over the top. They were just more or less annoyed they didn't want us there. And by boosting it, it was just interesting.
Well, when people ask me about hauntings, like especially in homes or businesses, they'll ask about, why is this happening? I think a lot of
Yeah.
times why it happens is we're in their way and they're pissed off and they're like, you know what? I'm going to do something to upset these people and
Mm-hmm.
and see if I can get rid of them, right? But sometimes on the other hand, they really just want some help and they're like trying to be problematic so that you find the right person to speak with them.
Yeah.
So that's where I've literally gone into places like that. They're like, look, we're going to leave. Like, we can't do it
Yeah.
anymore. And I've just walked in and been like, oh, there's just this guy here. And he's pissed off that you're ripping up the old floors of the place. And he put them down. He's really upset and he'd wish
Mm-hmm.
that you didn't. Is there anything that we could do to compromise, right? And the owner was like, how about if we keep a piece of the floor? And the
Yeah.
and the ghost was like, yeah, if he keeps a piece of the floor, I'll stop.
Yeah.
And that okay, compromise reached, and it's all the haunting shit stopped. It was crazy.
Yeah.
What's up, Terry?
My first experience was actually at my own house. I didn't believe it until I started seeing animals acting. Where we had a few cats. It's downstairs in the basement. It is a former owner of the house. That's kind of like an echo, like not an echo. I'm using stupid terms here because I'm trying
No,
to
it
use
works.
terminology because yeah. Um, but this thing at the beginning, like it was tolerant. It liked quiet. It didn't like the sunlight by the because this old 1940s house. It had a little window. It did not like that window being blocked, and
Mm,
I knew that because the blinds would always fall down. So that was their way of saying like, look, you can put decorations up there, but don't block the light. And I told this to my roommate that moved downstairs afterwards. She didn't believe me.
mm,
And then the activity actually picked up, and I think something else came in because I had storage downstairs. I had my grandmother's old board games, and inside 1960s, 1970s uh, board game collection, you have the Ouija board, and
of
then
course.
stuff really kicked up. Um, I my son was really curious about this because I've told him a lot of times when we went downstairs, and it's like seeing an old neighbor that you haven't seen for a very long time, and it's
Yep.
just still annoyed. So I don't get why this thing's so agitated with me.
So, how about this? What if you were so interested in all this paranormal stuff because you had your own gifts and the entity is annoyed with you because you're not taking the time to slow down and really listen or feel what they're trying to tell you and it's becoming annoying because you're not listening. So
Yeah,
that's something that I try to explain to people who are
yeah,
having haunting issues also like um sometimes these ghosts are like children and they'll be like they'll bang on walls, flicker the
yeah,
lights, play with the volume on the TV,
yeah,
make you feel upset.
yeah,
And a lot of times it's because there's a sensitive person living in the home and they're not listening to
yeah,
the entity who knows that they can hear them.
yeah,
So, maybe it's time for you in your spiritual journey, since you're interested in this anyway, maybe to take a step back and learn how to meditate and get quiet so that you can interpret the things that are happening around you a little bit better. The technical jargon is really good to know if you're going to go help other people,
yeah.
but for yourself, it's better to know your own feelings and emotions so that you can interact with these spirits and ghosts in a way that makes sense to you.
Well,
So,
the biggest thing is like I would say I'm kind of hypersensitive, right? So I'll pick up stuff. It likes quiet and alone, but it feeds off depression like nobody's business. If you weren't depressed going down there, you're coming up very
you
depressed. But it doesn't want you to
interesting.
go. It doesn't want you to go. It's completely content with you there, but as soon as you go, it gets angry.
Yeah, you're getting
Like
into the
upset.
stew, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
So
Yeah,
it's like
that's the kind of place I'd love to check. Amazing. It's the kind
it's
of
like
place I'd love to check. Amazing. People put silly stuff on here. I'm laughing at them. Thank you. Uh, you're ghost bait until you're educated is what people are saying. So
well,
that's interesting.
and that's true. Like I like the idea of Ghostbusters in the sense of trying to like looked at those spiritual amplifiers that they have out there. They're getting better. And yet again, I need to be more educated on the sense of certain people. I do believe there was a individual whose daughter passed away, and he made a spirit radio. And
So
you
that
know who I'm talking about?
Yep, I know somebody in here will say his name. I can't remember off the top of my head. He made the Mel meter. His daughter
Yeah,
passed away in a car accident, and he made the meter and called it the Mel meter after his daughter. Which I think
yeah,
I used to have mine right here. I guess I moved it. But yeah, so there's definitely people out there in the field, and that's all that guy does. He specifically makes um, equipment for detecting ghosts. You know, the thing is that we think we're detecting them. We're trying to get better at it, but who knows? The only way that we can figure out what's happening is through investigating, getting it wrong, right? Like any science, and then
yeah.
eventually figure out the patterns that we're getting right, so we can move in the proper direction.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
No, and that's true. I found it very fascinating that he went out of the way, and he's definitely made a huge advancement in paranormal research. So that
yeah,
like that's essentially, if I were to turn this off here, like this thing, right? Everybody knows what this thing
yeah,
is, right? Which is technically dowel rods and an EMF detector all in one.
it's exactly what it is. Yes.
It's a Geiger meter picks up radion particles and what else? Radiation and just disturbances, which is I find very interesting too.
Which
So
our EMF detectors will pick that stuff up as well. So it's interesting that the Ghostbusters had something fake at the time, and it turned out it's isn't that always the way the science fiction always predicts the reality?
well, and that's the
Um,
thing. Like it's just like I find this stuff very interesting because I'm talking to Ben Eady, EDI.
isn't that
That's
funny that you
awesome.
said his name? And that's what this.
Yeah,
So this is an EMF detector, which I just used to help.
yeah,
Um, what do they say? I helped debunk a haunting with this actually
yeah.
just last week.
Is it
So
bad old electrical or what?
yeah, so the homeowner was saying that he felt like somebody was watching him in the house.
Yeah,
Uh, they were experiencing apparitions. They were having nightmares, hallucinations, all kinds of interesting stuff. So I took this bad boy and I
yeah,
turned it on in the house, and the EMF sensor pretty much should never go off unless it's near a source of something really strong, like my phone, which
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
broadcasting. Well, as soon as I turned this on in the guy's house, the blue lights just started flickering like crazy, which it shouldn't do. And as
Yeah.
I walked through the entire house, it was just going off. So I let him bring me down into the basement. And the further I got into the basement, the more this went off until I started testing all the copper pipes with it, not the water pipes, and it was going off like crazy. So
Ooh,
he brought me to the main, what do they call it? Like the main line into the home, right?
yeah,
Where all the water comes in. And I put this up against it and it lit up like a Christmas tree. So from the main water line into the house, the pipes were hit with EMF. So with that information, I took it and I went up to the third floor, all the way away from the source, and I put it up against a sink tap and it was still going off. So
yeah,
every single copper pipe in that house was emitting EMF. And
yeah.
one and all the symptoms of high EMF are the same symptoms that you would expect to have during a haunting.
No,
So,
and that's what I find is I wonder. Like this is another theory. If EMF is amplified, that it's basically a conduit for spirit. So you might have a double entendre there.
yep. So what I did was after I gave him the very plausible explanation for all the things that he was experiencing in his family,
Yeah.
um, I got quiet and I did like a little, I don't know how you call it. I just was looking for ghosts and how I do my thing. And his great aunt came forward, gave me her name and some information about herself, so she was present. And then the funny thing is, this gentleman walked up to me and he had an electric guitar in one hand and a saxophone in the other hand. And I was like, "That's interesting." So I said to the guys, I was like, "Do you have any professional musicians in your family? This is really interesting." And he was like, "No, I don't. But do you know where you are?" And I was like, "No, like not like I know it's my town, so I know where I am, but no, why?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, next door to me is Max Weinstein's old house. He was the drummer for Bruce Springsteen and the E
Yeah.
Street Band, and they all practiced in that house for years."
Yeah.
So the saxophone and the guitar possibly were residual energy from Clarence, who passed away several years ago, the saxophone player for the Bruce. Yeah, and I had no idea. So it was really interesting that I was picking up on that as well. So
Yeah.
I was looking for the ghosts because I want to make sure the house is clear as well, but there didn't seem to be anything there that would indicate like bad ghosts, negative ghosts. This was definitely more of a high EMF issue.
Yeah.
So
No,
they're
like
getting that rectified.
if there's one place, if I ever get the opportunity, mind you, daytime, okay, is Chillingham Castle. I saw the documentary, the investigations on it. I just find that place extremely interesting. I wish people would cover it more.
I'm gonna write it so I know.
Yeah, Chillingham Castle was covered in the early 2000s in a show. I can't remember what it was called, but it's hosting Linda Blair.
I I'm sure I've seen it. I know exactly what
Yes,
you're talking about.
but it basically, essentially, over 250,000 people along the Chillingham Northumberland border back when the Scots and the English were at war, right? Went through and didn't come out the other side, basically.
Hey, that happens.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And the other thing is too, like especially up here in Canada. Yet again, we hear about the sanatorium, in the United States, the Winchester House, in the United States. Is like, okay, the only thing in Canada that I've ever heard was the Old Fort, which is out in Ontario. That's from
Hmm.
the 15 or 1600s. It's just like we have the world's biggest rock slide in North America, where over 150 people are buried over, I think, it was it 250 million tons of rock, right?
Really?
Yeah, a whole side of a mountain slid down. It was at that point, it was the North America's largest disaster before the Californian earthquake.
Wow, no kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's that's very interesting.
so
So
72 people passed away, and only I think 14 survived.
I bet you that Canada has a lot more ghosts than we really know about. Probably because y'all are too polite to put out business that doesn't belong to you.
Well, yeah, no,
Us Americans are like, we'll tell the story.
no, there's a lot. I think it's because it's almost like when we talk about it, people don't believe you, think you're crazy, so they'll just walk away, right? So there's this
Yeah.
kind of this sense of shame where they're like, "Yeah, I live with a ghost." Oh, cool. Anyways, let's go get some
Anyway,
Tim's and go down. It's like
well,
completely past.
well,
So
here I'll tell you a funny story. Growing up, um, I I I had a couple too many beers and I was staying over this guy's. He was like, you know how when you're a kid you kind of end up in weird places by accident.
yeah,
So I ended up at a friend of a friend's house. Excuse me. And I had a couple too many drinks, so I didn't want to drive. So the dude was like, "Yo, just crash on the couch. It's no big deal." So I was like, "All
yeah,
right, thanks, dude. I appreciate you." So in the middle of the night, I hear thumping coming down the steps of this guy's house, and I'm
yeah,
like, "Why is this guy coming down here?" So I put my head up and I look and there's nobody there. And I was like, oh, maybe I was just hearing things. I go
yeah.
back to sleep. And a couple minutes later, it sounds like something's getting dragged across a floor, like, shh, shh, shh. And I'm like,
Okay.
what the hell? I'm like, is this guy playing a joke on me? Like, what the hell is going on? So
Yeah.
I stood up, and now I turned a lamp on. I'm looking around, and there's nobody there. I was like, all
Really?
right, yeah, I'm like, this is freaking weird. So I go back to sleep. And again, like 10 minutes later, I hear thumping again. Now I'm annoyed. So I get up, and this time I felt like, oh, I got eyes on me. Like I feel like somebody's watching me. So I go up the steps to where this guy's bedroom is, and I knock on the door. I'm like, bro, I'm like, what are you doing up here? It's making all this noise. Are you okay? And he
Yeah.
goes, oh, he's like, oh, sorry, dude. He's like, this house is so fucking haunted. He's like, just ignore it. And I was like, what? I was like, you didn't think to tell me that he's like, sometimes it makes noise, sometimes it doesn't, man. He's like, it won't bother you. Go to bed. So
Quit being such a wuss. Go back to
yeah,
sleep.
it was so funny. And
By the way,
I was only like maybe like 20 or 21. I was not well versed into all the paranormal stuff yet, so
yeah,
I was like super creeped out. Yeah, it was funny. But that's I'll never forget him. I see him every once in a while. His name is Tom, and it's a really funny thing that sticks with me all these years later.
that's awesome. Yeah. No, I've heard stories. I think one of my friends growing up said something about that, and I never slept over at his house ever.
Oh,
After he told me that, I was just like, no, no. I already got something I'm dealing with, and that's fine by me. It just the cat and it don't get along. We called
oh,
the ghost. My sisters and I called the ghost Bob.
Bub.
Bob.
Oh, Bob. Well, Bob's your uncle, right?
Well, pretty much could be.
Isn't that isn't that a Canadian thing?
But yeah, it is. It's a
It
Canadian.
is.
No,
Yeah.
you get it done, and Bob's your uncle, right
There
there,
you
bud.
go. See, I know. I only know. I watch my Peter McKinnon a lot on YouTube. You know who he is?
I do believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like super famous photographer, like
Yeah.
super YouTube famous. Great, funny, and he's one of your fellow Canadians. He says a lot of funny shit. So I learn a lot of Canadian culture from him.
Well, we're gonna
I hope
have to
it's
have you
accurate.
up here because we. So if you're doing the show,
Yeah.
and this is merely a suggestion, because
Yep.
yet again hasn't been covered on live TV. The most haunted location in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, is the Dean House. The Dean House has 7 spirits in it.
Okay.
Okay, it has a man with a cigar on the piano, a woman and a child upstairs, a man that falls down the flight of stairs quite often, and a Native American in the basement.
Are they? I was gonna make a bad joke. Go on.
I know where you were going to go with it. I totally know where you were going to go with it too.
Everybody did. They're like the
They're
gear
not the
started
village
spinning.
people,
They're
are
like,
they?
this guy's an idiot. They're like, he's dumb. It's Native American because it's the whole continent, idiot.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no. Apparently, it's a Native American that is in full war regalia. So
Oh, interesting.
that area is right adjacent to the Northwest Mounted Police, which is current day RCMP. Their first post in Calgary, which was Fort Calgary, right? So the natives used to set up camp all the way across. And it's right across from the river, and it's right at 2 adjoining rivers,
Okay.
right?
Perfect.
So that's highly spiritual energy
Damn.
boost.
Yeah.
So and back in the days, it was a little engineering feat. They took this great big house that was 2,000 square feet and moved it across from the fort over across the river to the other side. So
Wow. Yeah,
yeah,
that is some feat. Even
yeah,
now, that would be a big to
that was
do.
back in 1885 thereabouts.
Them, I think that was very common. They were like, I don't want to
Yeah,
leave the house. Let's take it.
well,
And they would just
even
bring it wherever.
the house that I grew up in, right, had it was moved a street and a block up where apartment complexes were. So they poured a concrete foundation, moved the house over there to make room for the apartment complex.
Really?
It's just so weird.
That is weird. They were like, we got to save the house. Let's just move it
Yeah,
over.
totally. It's a Sears house. Thank you.
Just a nice little crash when they moved over. Nice. I like that.
So I would love to have Dan Aykroyd like even sit down with
Bro,
somebody like you and go over the equipment stuff and just because
I,
everything in theory is concept. He spent years thinking about this stuff. It actually
you
makes
could tell.
sense.
So I told my wife a couple months ago, part of my journey here forward, through all the entertainment part of the paranormal is I told her, I was like, I'm going to sit down with Dan Aykroyd and I'm going to give him a legitimate mediumship reading. That's going to be like my big goal. When people are like, what's your big goal for all this? A lot of
Yeah.
people want fame and money. I don't give a shit. I want
He,
to sit next to Dan Aykroyd, talk to him about ghosts, aliens, maybe drink a little bit of his vodka, even though I'm not a vodka guy,
yeah.
and give him a legit mediumship reading where I could be like, dude, this is a real thing. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
No,
and like you,
he's
and talk to him about all the cool stuff that he thought up.
well, and that's the thing. Like he's his family. Like you know about Dan quite substantially.
Yep.
So for everybody that's watching, Dan Aykroyd comes from a family of spiritualists. And back in the 20s, when seances were the hip, cool thing to do on a Friday night, they took it very seriously. And his great grandfather, by the name of Santa Aykroyd, was a medium. And he used to do seances to channel the spirits and used to, you know, basically talk to the individuals that were there. And I guess his father, Peter Aykroyd, as a young boy, walked in and there was a trumpet floating around. And then as soon as he walked in, it fell to the ground. So he'll never forget that.
Yeah.
So,
I've never seen anything that substantial. I've seen things thrown but never float. So that's very interesting. And I, even with my own things that I do, I never see anything like that. Maybe because the ghost would know that might freak me out a little too much. If I was sitting in this room and Slimer here just picked up and started floating around my room, I'd be like,
yeah.
no, stop that. That's scary. Don't do that.
Well, and I think half the issue is like dealing with the spiritual plane. It's almost like the movie with Swayze, right? You only get a little bit of energy to contact the physical. I'm
Yep.
pretty sure if they could stabilize something, which some of these entities can, it
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of energy, right? And
Oh
some
yeah.
of them that are very new or did something super or had a tragic accident where they literally have a ghost of a ghost arm and they can't lift that arm. Like I just watched a Xbox where they do the digital outline of
Mm-hmm.
figures.
Yep.
It couldn't lift its arm. It was having so much problem with the right hand side, couldn't lift its arm. So something tells me that it had some sort of trauma on that arm, that it
Right.
couldn't lift it. But it was
So
trying.
that's interesting because when I do mediumship readings, a lot of times the people who are coming to me from the other side will, well, for instance, yeah, we can use that. I just did one where the gentleman had a stroke. And so when I was starting to talk to him, the whole left side of my body started to go numb and I was having trouble moving my left hand. And
Yeah,
that's the signal like I had a stroke and I had a lot of trouble with that. So for an entity to do the same thing, I could understand that because it's the way that they're trying to communicate.
yeah.
Um,
I see
Suzanne
you,
Miller
gentlemen.
says, how do you hire me to get a reading? Go to my link in bio and you can send me an email. But please don't be upset if I don't get to you. I have like a million in there. I
Yeah.
apologize. So yeah, it's very interesting all this stuff. Let's see.
No.
Autumn says all of that energy has always existed. We as mediums just give the energy a place to speak. Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
So if you were to pass away tomorrow, what do you think you would tell a medium to get validation that it's you to your family? What would you say? Like,
Who you
what
gonna
do you
call?
think? Who you gonna call? They'd be like, that's too easy. He had a whole channel where he did funny shit the entire day.
Yeah.
What like um I would probably do something funny. I'm a obviously huge Ghostbuster fan, but I would probably do something like um probably talk about David
Yeah.
Hasselhoff or something. I would be like, think about David Hasselhoff in red swim shorts. Like Knight Rider. Like I'd really want them to like say that because Ghostbusters is a layup. Um,
Yeah.
but like I'm a real big Knight Rider fan too, but I don't talk about it as much. So that would be funny for me to say. Like or the other day, a grandfather came through, and I was like, he has something in his hand, and I think he's cracking walnuts. I've never seen that though. And the lady
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my God, I that's all he did it. Like he just ate walnuts." And I remember him growing up, he just cracking walnuts all the time. And I was like, "Yeah, see, that's really specific that I would have no idea about, right?" So it was really interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, it's I just find it like a art form. I also think like, and not really, it's a gift. It's not really an art form, it's a gift. But I also see from the paranormal investigation and other serious mediums, there's also a lot of people that take advantage of that dry read off people. And that drives me absolutely bonkers because I'm like, I've talked to actual mediums and I've also talked to fakes, and I've
yeah,
literally pulled a pen and teller on them. And I'm like, I know what you're doing. I can do that exact same thing too. Like that's
yep,
completely like it's brutal. So
yeah. So, and that's important for people to know. And I try to tell them when somebody's loved one comes through, say your grandmother's coming through, it's not good enough for her to be like, I like to bake cookies and cook. I'm like, yeah, but everybody does.
yeah,
So tell me something that I could never know about.
yeah,
Like, and I have my book here, and I'm just thinking, like, looking for examples of like really interesting stuff. A couple months ago, a woman showed me a ring, and I drew the ring, and the woman who I was doing the reading for was like, "Yeah, it doesn't look familiar to me." And then a day later, she sent me a photograph of a ring. She's like, "My sister has this ring. It was our grandmother's, and you drew it exactly how it looked." And I was
if,
like,
if,
"Okay,
if we ever do a sketch together,
which we should."
I want to do the whole Zener card thing with the kids at the university, just with you. I totally want to do that, but you're getting every card right, but I'm not looking at it.
Right?
It's a plus sign. Nope, it's wrong. So,
But
uh, all I hear are child miners that just want company.
oh, Twin Crows Tarot is a fantastic tarot card reader, and she's very intuitive herself. I have this really interesting story that I like to tell where I was talking to a woman about her mom who had passed, and the mom told me to talk. She just made me draw a bottle, and she's like, "This bottle's very significant," but I wasn't sure what it was, so I just
Yeah,
drew it on my paper, and I was like, "It's important, so I'm going to write it down." And I always tell everybody if we don't know what it means, I just want to write it down anyway so you have it.
yeah.
Um, Several months later, this woman messaged me and she said, my sisters and I and my dad were at a backyard party for like 4th of July, and we were talking about our mom, and the mom had passed away like 20 years ago. And my dad got teary eyed and he got up from the table and he went into the basement. He went into his toolbox and he came up with a like a t-shirt, and he takes the t-shirt off of the object that it's covering, and it's this old bottle of like Midori liquor, and he pours a shot for everybody, and he says, "This was your mom's actual bottle of liquor, and I've been waiting to take it out um, to have a drink with everybody at the right time." And he's like, "I think now is it." So nobody but him even knew that this bottle existed. So this woman took the time 6 months later to be like, "Remember that bottle that was so important? This was
Yeah,
it."
yeah.
So it's just those kinds of things that really bring an amazing validation
I
to it
have
all.
so much stuff here. It's not even funny. Like I have my family history right beside me. You know, so they call me the museum in my family. So they're
Oh
like,
yeah,
"Hey, do you have any grandmas or grandpas or great grandpas stuff?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's over there."
yeah.
you know.
So one day, privately, we'll just sit down and I'll do your reading and see what your family members have to say,
Oh dear, my word. Okay.
just for fun, just so you can get a taste of what this is what this is all about and how I do it.
I've never done it, so yeah. When you have time, no big rush.
Yeah,
I
yeah, we'll
know
get there.
I know I gotta get more uniformed out, and then more of a backdrop, and then pre-planned so we can have some fun and
Oh, you
go.
look great. Your stuff looks awesome. I wish I had that stuff.
What? What this stuff
Yeah,
right
you're
there?
cool. Yeah, I don't have that.
You got a like cool accent lighting,
Yeah, you know
and
what happened though? We were talking about ghosts and it came down.
really,
Yeah.
that's weird.
Well, let's see.
Would it be on a fly on the wall for that? Yeah, it'd be interesting, Tam. It'd be really interesting. Apparently, I'm in the. Yes, you are. You haven't been released, Tamarel. So, yeah, do the whole. Yeah, what this old thing? This is just from 1984. It's not a big deal. It's a relic, you
It's
know.
a relic.
Yeah,
It's
and
full, by the way.
yeah, I was kind of because I met Ivan briefly while they
Oh,
were
that's
filming
cool.
Ghostbusters up here, and he just passed away.
Yeah.
And it's just like people don't realize. They're like, "Oh, it's so sad." I'm like, "You don't understand. Like he's so incredibly proud of his son and his daughters. It's not even funny. Like this is the perfect time to go out. What a better way."
Yeah. Working Moms is a funny show. Have you watched that
Oh,
on Netflix?
she's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like and Jason, I've met Jason numerous times. He's just as funny as she is. He just never shows it. So
Right.
one
He's
of the
behind the
things
camera.
we've asked for Jason, if you do another movie, for the love of God, be the kid from '89 again. Like you don't have to cut your hair. We just want to know what happened to him. you
My
know?
dad says you're full of crap.
yeah. What do you mean? He says you guys are full of crap. And that's the reason why you went out of business.
Wait, somebody said I just heard a voice. She said it's hot in here and it came from this live.
Really?
Um, it's pretty
It's
warm in my room, but
this is a really good. Well, this is my really amazing friend and more than. Uh, and she's hypersensitive to stuff. So
oh, okay.
I it's a reliable source. My room is quiet and super cold. So she's her land is really interesting. Really interesting. It's I do believe Tam. It's native land, pretty close to. Like she's got a lot of activity on her land.
Interesting.
Like I've
So,
do you do spirit project at all?
yeah,
Astral? Okay, so I've gone there and there's a lot of activity, a lot of old activity there. So
interesting.
and she's got she is pagan. She lives on old gold mine land, and her family's like really big into the industry, except for out of state. She's got ties to it, so I don't know for her.
Well, Tam, if you are comfortable, if you want to come on and talk, I'd love to hear what you got to say.
That'd be
I
really
welcome it.
cool.
Yeah, I welcome everybody. I love hearing cool stuff and cool stories, and other people who are sensitive and got neat stories. Living on a gold mine, that's cool.
What was your first experience?
When I was like 4 or 5, I went to my mom's friend's house and I was talking to a woman in front of a fireplace who I could see clear as day. And my mom's friend came over and I remember her saying like, "Who are you talking to?" And I said, "I'm talking to Deb." And I remember saying this. And she was like, "Okay." And she took a photograph down from somewhere and she said, "Can you point Deb out in this photograph?" And I said, "Okay." And I pointed to her and then I remember pointing at the woman and and then I remember my mom and this her friend being like looking at me and like being confused and excited looking too.
Yeah.
And later on in life, um, because I didn't understand what's happening. Later on, my mom was like, that was her grandmother. Her grandmother had passed away many years ago. And you were just sitting there talking to her as if she was a human being in the room. And then
I'm
you
really,
pointed her out.
yeah, that's really dang cool. Another random one that popped in my head is why close to birthdays or holidays or their events, right? It seems like they're always active around those times. I wonder why.
It probably has a lot to do with the fact that we are thinking about them on those anniversaries, on their birthdays or
Yeah,
the time that they pass. And I always try to let people know that when you're thinking about them, it brings them closer to us.
yeah,
So, um, if you're around the time when one of your grandparents passed and they were super close to you, and you're like, man, it's been 15 years since they passed, I really miss them. That is enough to pull them close to you,
yeah,
and you can have a little bit of an experience with them. Maybe you would have a dream about them around that time, or you might smell something that reminded you of them around then, or a song would come on. And for me, it always seems like it's their way of giving us comfort that they're okay. And then when it's our time to go, that we'll be okay. That
yeah,
it's scary because we don't know, but we have enough knowledge that we could be comfortable with the fact that when we pass,
yeah,
it's okay. We'll be fine.
yeah.
Unless
I'm not
we turn
disturbed
into
in.
ghosts.
What I find really interesting is as the years go by, you don't really think, let's say, birthdays. You think more like death dates, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes, um, like my stepdad's birthday passed a few weeks ago, didn't even dawn on me. And then I had certain activity happen, and then memories going through my mind. And I'm like, okay, you're here. Like, I know you're here, you know.
Yes.
But it's just like, you're reminding me of your birthday. Okay. Like, now I feel bad. My grandmother did that too. I just really missed her all of a sudden. It was really hitting me hard.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm like, I can't even remember what date she died. I know it was fall, summer, and I looked it up. It was literally like 2 days before. So it's just
So
like they're more or less shaking me and going, "Hey, you forgetting something?"
yeah. Are you forgetting I used to be here? You used to
Yeah,
love me, right?
yeah.
Um,
It's
yeah, that's
almost
a
like a
very
magnet thing. Now I feel rejected,
a
and she
little bit
threw
of a
me out
guilt
of her
trip,
life.
actually. Nah, it's totally fine. That's probably why the most requested thing that I get from Spirit on the other side is for um, the living to take photographs and put them up in places that they can see them. Because if you have a photograph of your grandmother up,
Yeah,
like say like in a hallway that you walk down all the time, you're not going to forget her.
yeah,
So out of sight, out of mind for many of us, unfortunately, and that's totally fine. It's human nature. Um,
yeah,
so they'll always be like, "Can you put this picture up of me when I was like 25 and I was having a great time at this wedding?"
yeah,
Okay, and they have that photograph and they'll put it up,
yeah,
and that helps us remember them. So that's
yeah,
always nice.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's really cool, man. Like I just because you got so much experience in this, we could
yeah.
really like understand this better because, like, and I've even asked. I haven't seen an apparition, a physical apparition since 1999. It's been that long, and the last one scared the shit out of me
Oh, what
because
happened?
I lived along the Red River in Winnipeg, Manitoba, right outside by St. Andrews. That was established back in. I'm really pulling numbers. It was old Rupert's Land, which is established in 1830 during the potato famine, the migration that came
Okay,
over. Also, Vikings were really close. There's Viking going
interesting.
through the Stepo, big beer chainmail coming at me
Holy cow!
slowly, very mad. I got so scared, man. I was going through a lot of stuff, mind you, at that time. I was going through a lot of duress, and I was what 12, 13 when that happened, and I didn't want to go back in that room afterwards. Like it was just like, and then I realized like we're literally maybe a mile away from the river. There's been artifacts of Vikings found up and down from all the way up from Hudson's Bay all the way past Winnipeg of Viking material, right? So
Mhm.
I'm still wondering. I think because of the fact on my depression state at that time, it was probably an entity that was either feeding off of it or wanting something, but I don't know. Like that was the thing. I always thought too, like from a logical standpoint, we look at objects or shadows and then we'll try to identify faces. So maybe I was in such a weird state I could have made something out of the Steppo, right? But it that
Right.
seemed too real.
Yeah, you could have, when people are really sad and down in the dumps, our defenses are kind of down too. Like the filters that we put up to tell ourselves that there's not more out there because we have to live in this reality and deal with our life. If you
Yeah,
were in such a vulnerable spot, those defenses might have been down, and you got a glimpse into that next dimension where that person was.
yeah,
And I don't always think ghosts. Sometimes I think we get a look into the past or the future by accident. So
yeah.
sometimes we see shadows, and that might be a quick glimpse into the past or the future, but you may have just gotten a quicker, more clear glimpse of somebody that was there or had a hard time or similar time to you.
Yeah,
A death state is a moment of sadness and clarity at the same time. So if you were having such an extreme time, you may have been identifying with this person without even realizing it, and you
oh
just
snap, I never thought about that.
yeah, and
Okay.
you linked with them for a moment, and then the moment's gone because your
That's
rational brain took back over and was like, "What the fuck?" Right?
yeah,
So it clears it out. So if you were to go back into that space and say, "I really want to connect with this entity or this person," is that a possibility? And we put you into a calm state to do that. You may be able to do it in a way that's not scary because it's controlled and
yeah,
expected. And then you might be able to figure out why you linked with him and what the deal was. So, but it may have very well just been because you were in that state of mind, like
yeah,
linking up with them. You're so sad, and you're in even a, and this is important for everybody listening. Children have very powerful emotions. So don't ever rob them and be like, you can't feel that. That's not an emotion. Don't do that. It's very invalidating. Um, let them know that it's okay to feel those emotions and help them work through them. Right. So
yeah,
at that moment, you're having that tough time, and there's another soul out there that maybe had that similar experience in proximity, and
yeah,
you link up for a moment, and then it's gone.
yeah,
So scary, sure, because your rational brain was like, this shouldn't be happening. But your
yeah,
spiritual being is like, this makes sense.
yeah, for sure.
So
Um,
that that's one of just a theory.
no, it's perfectly awesome. It is super educational. Uh, I feel like Janine Melton's giving, like, asking these questions, but it's more out of context. Please engage with your fans. I don't want to interrupt.
No, no,
Um,
they like it. I think
okay.
everybody here likes this stuff.
Um, Past life regression.
Hmm.
Have you tried it?
For myself, I don't do it, but I don't do what's called past life regression. I do something else that's called Akashic record reading, which
Yeah.
is a real fancy sort of smug way of saying past life regression, where
Hi, props to
I,
history.
I props to history is here.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. He's gonna say
Bro,
hello.
please,
Props to history.
please follow me. I love you. Please follow me. I love you. Please follow me.
Mr. Props. He's super awesome.
Yo, he's one of my favorite TikTok channels. Um, what
Yeah,
was I
me too.
talking about before I got fanboyed there?
Okay, you were saying
Akashic
something
record
about,
reading.
yeah, cash
So
record.
yeah, so basically it's just this really smug way of saying that I will sit with a client and I will look at them and I'll look at their past lives to see if there's any sort of traumas or victories that would help explain their life now and how they're feeling,
Yeah,
and see if we can rectify some of those past issues in order to give them a validation for how they are now. As an example, I did this for a woman. She was sitting in a, like, I don't want to get too hippie on this, but we were in a circle, and
hmm,
I watched her as a soldier in a past life, probably sometime in World War I or II. She was put to her knees and executed and put in a pit with several other soldiers that were executed in a similar fashion. And I could see that she in this lifetime had a lot of knee issues and abandonment issues.
Yeah.
So when we came up out of our meditation, I spoke to her about that, and I will tell you that she was probably about 125 pounds soaking wet. So she definitely wasn't overweight to have knee issues, and she was like, "My knees have killed me my entire life," and
Yeah.
she validated immediately. She was just like, "I am so afraid of people leaving me." And I could never figure out why an abandonment. And I was like, it's this is what I saw.
Yeah.
And when we talked through that, she said that it felt like a weight was lifted from her. So um, it was really cool to hear that. And there's a lot of instances like that. So past life regression is neat. So that'd be more for like um, if you want to go back and take a look at it for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a maybe you need a hypnotist to do that, I guess.
Well, like yet
I don't
again,
know.
with yes, you can do hypnot. That one scares me because I don't want to relive it. I know for a fact, without a shadow of a doubt, I just don't know which one. It's either World War I or World War II outside of France. And I've had these dreams for many years. They started when I was 8. So,
Very
but
interesting that out of all the stories that I could brought up, I brought up one very
yeah,
poignant for that.
I it's weird because the dream I haven't had it in about 4 years, since normally I'm not thinking about
Thanks,
anything.
props.
So there's no like subconscious thing or anything prior to going to bed. I wasn't watching anything regarding it, that stuff at all. Um, uh, I can literally see France. Like I can see the city. I'm outside the city, and I get shot in the gut. That's what I remember. And I'm over no man's land. I'm going someplace, but I can see the city. I get shot, and that's the end of my dream. Every single time.
De- Definitely. So I'm going to play therapist real quick, although I'm not licensed to.
Yeah.
um, how in this lifetime would you think that that might affect you? Is there anything that you feel like, oh, well, first off, let's just take a minute to take a second about what you said earlier.
Okay.
You are like the family historian, so you collect all of the things that people leave behind. So that's really important because you don't want anybody's story to go untold.
No.
Perhaps like a young soldier who was killed before their lifetime should have been over.
Well,
Um,
when uh, Canadian Day Remembrance Day comes around, it's a very hard time for me. I've never seen any combat, never. But I completely like shut down. November 11th, I shut down. I don't talk to anybody, don't call anybody. That's it, right? Whenever people are wanting war or anything like that, I get very, very extremely mad because they like yet again haven't seen it firsthand. I've essentially in psychological terms, I see, I'm a generational trauma passed down from my both my grandfathers to my parents to me, right? So maybe that's where it's coming from. I try to rationalize this as much as I can, logically, psychologically, stuff like that. I can't even place it, right? Like, maybe this guy watched too much history. I don't think so. It's just, it was too vivid and the emotions are way too raw. So it's just like,
yeah,
I
no,
don't know.
it sounds like you absolutely are getting into that. So that's why we call it reading the soul book, the Akashic record, instead
Yeah.
of past life regression, because
Yeah.
we can look at that trauma and talk about it and try to understand it, how it affects you now. So
Yeah.
I had a woman do it to me, and this is what happened.
Yeah.
She read my Akashic record and she said, um, very funnily, she was just like, "You don't like being held down." And I was like, "Well, what human being does?" And she said, "No." She's like, "You will fight tooth and nail even if you're just practicing." Now, I have two black belts in martial arts. I had a very tough time when it came to ground fighting because I could not stand being pinned to the ground. So I never did any wrestling or anything like that for that very reason.
Yeah.
Small confined spaces, no problem. Did not like being pinned down.
Yeah.
So while we're doing this, she's like, I will tell you what I see. And she's like, sometime in like the early 1900s, it looks like you were 10 or 11 years old. You were working in a field with a big piece of heavy equipment, and the
Yeah.
equipment died, and you crawled underneath it to fix it, and the equipment fell on you and killed you. It pinned you to the ground, and you died. As soon as she said that, whatever fear I had of being pinned down went away, and I've had zero problems with it since.
That's crazy.
So
So
she essentially helped me address it
yeah,
and helped me realize that in my lifetime now, that's not a rational fear to have.
that's crazy. Mine, sub basements, underground caves, mines. I'll watch videos just to see why I have this. I get really claustrophobic, and it could be wide open spaces. I just no. I find it absolutely fascinating because the amount of history that's down there, the artifacts, the
Yep.
time, the brotherhood stuff like that. But it scares the crap out of me. Yeah, I don't know why. I
Yeah,
don't know
and
why.
I I have the same. I just posted a video, a TikTok about that a couple days ago, saying, um, just on this topic, basically trying to elicit some responses and see how people felt about it.
Yeah,
What irrational fears do you have in this lifetime that don't
yeah,
make
yeah,
sense?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I wanted to understand what more about it, and that's how I kind of was getting people to come out of their shell and talk.
Okay.
So they're rational fears. There's a reason why you're afraid, and it's a fear inside your soul. Like,
Yeah,
I'm really afraid of this.
yeah.
And it's because you probably had that trauma once before. And although this brain doesn't remember it, the consciousness that's
Oh
attached to
yeah,
it does.
yeah.
So that's why.
No, so
Isn't that neat?
like Tamarel was asking here, why
Hmm.
would I be advised not to do a past life regression?
The only reason I can imagine that you would be advised not to do a past life regression is because there may be something there that you're not ready to face at this particular or at that particular moment in time. So whenever that person said that, um, they may have seen something in your past that was just like, man, she's not going to be able to deal with this right now. It'd be too traumatic. But that doesn't mean never do it. It just meant at that moment they may not have felt it was a good spot, or they weren't ready to help you process that trauma either. So that's one of those things where ask again.
Yeah,
I think that it's a good idea to try to do those things,
yeah,
especially if you want to grow as a person and explore this other piece of us that many people are afraid of, which it seems
yeah.
like you're not afraid to do. So,
No, and there is another space to watch videos there, Tam, where they actually do a past life regression on a journalist, and she's literally on a slave ship, and she gets so shooken in it that she never wanted to do it again. Like never wanted to do hypnotized or anything like that. Um, uh, and there was see, I love the shows where it's a psychic, mediumship, historian, and stuff like that all come together to try to break it down. They did another regression where this gentleman from the United States was I do believe he was an Irish or English author, and they went to the old town where this individual lived over 100 years ago, and the guy just got super emotional. Right? They took him
yeah,
to rule it out. They took him to 7 different other places, and went around a few times. But as soon as they showed up to that place, he started crying, and he said, "I'm home."
his soul remembered.
It's just it's nuts. And
Yep.
Tamarel, what's that? What is the well called? It's in Scotland. I think it's called the Blue Well. She's very moved by it because her forefather is Robert the Bruce. And Robert the Bruce is said to stop by the Blue Well prior to one of the major battles. So, and it was so crazy on how moved the Blue Pool, on how moved she was just by that. And
Uh,
it's just, there needs to be more investigation in this. I think
yeah,
it's hand in hand with the, the I get so excited because it's spirituality, it's paranormal investigation because technically you're doing investigation on another lifetime timeline. Plus, those entities may or may not know you, or they could be drawing you to that location, right?
yep.
And trying to
Um,
communicate to you that way.
and then the history part of it. So I don't remember my facts as well as you do,
Yeah,
but I do love history, and I always tell anybody who wants to do mediumship the way that I do it is called evidentiary mediumship, which means that basically, like if I'm telling you about something, there's going to be a fact to it that you can back up, and there's no denying what I'm telling you is the truth. So when it comes to historical spots, um, it's really interesting when I go to places for hauntings and I will talk about things. Well, we'll just take the most recent story. I
Yeah.
talked about the gentleman with the electric guitar and the saxophone.
Yeah.
I didn't know that that person would have ever even been next door. And here's this man being like, they practice next door. There's no wonder you're picking up that energy, right?
Yeah.
And it's a fact. That's where that man owned that house and that's where they did their thing. Um, a home that I had investigated in Long Branch, New Jersey. The family was telling me that there was a entity that would walk through the house that was very sad and would make everybody sad. And when I got there, I encountered a woman. She lived in the attic, basically like the usual haunting kind of stuff. And she was very sad. And I said, "Well, why are you sad?" And she said, "Well, I lost 4 children, and they were all under 4 years old. I'm
Oh,
very sad. I don't know where they are, and I'd really like to find them." And I said, "Okay,
so
what year is it?" And she was like, 1910. I said, "Okay. And where's your husband?" "He's never home. I don't know where he is." "Okay."
that
So,
sounds like the
so
exact
I
same
said,
story.
I told the
Yeah.
homeowner all this stuff, right? And I said, I'll tell her it's okay to cross over and that her babies are probably on the other side because they're not here. And we did that, and the house felt better. And
Yeah.
this gentleman's dad, who was like 75 years old, was just basically like, this guy talking about me. He's like, this guy's full of shit, and I'm gonna prove it. So he went. He was actually like a low key historian and had all kinds of crazy access to like records for the
Yeah.
area.
Yep.
And well, 2 weeks later, he actually ended up proving that I was right. He found records for the home that there was a young woman who actually committed suicide there. She had lost 4 children under 4 years old, and her husband was a traveling salesman for basically selling the home that they lived in.
Yeah.
He would sell other homes like it to be built or whatever.
Wow.
So he totally vindicated what I was saying. It was crazy. And then they were like, "Okay, that we believe everything you said, so that's perfect." So the history is always important to back up the things that you're saying. So for all of you people out there that are practicing, don't get upset when you're off because you're
Yeah.
probably right and we're just not finding the information. But don't say crazy shit without being able to try to back it up.
Yeah. And I'm sorry for interjecting. I didn't mean
No,
to butt in. So there's another house. So you can write this down too. So there's Dean House. Then the other one is called the Rouge, which is actually the A.E. Cross House. He was a local politician back in 1917, and same exact story as you just told me.
what? Really?
Lost 3 children, all under the age of, I think it was 5, to the Spanish influenza. She also died, and he stayed alive.
That's
And
crazy.
it's exactly the same story. It's a beautiful house. It's I think it's a 4-star restaurant now down down in a small little neighborhood, not too far away from the Dean House, out of all things. So,
See, your
yeah,
friend Tam says, "How do you close the veil?" I can't get him to stop sometimes. I always tell everybody that I do a meditation where I close my eyes and I envision a storefront. And in the storefront, there's a door. And on the door, it says, "Come on in, we're open," on the sign. And when I don't want to talk to anybody, I just walk up to the sign and I flip it over and it says, "Sorry, we're closed." And it keeps them from coming inside. And then when I'm ready to talk to them, I flip the sign over and I tell them to come in.
that's
It's that
awesome.
easy. Yeah, and it always ever since I figured that out, it always works. And sometimes they get a little bit aggressive and one or two will break the trust barrier, but for the most part they don't do that.
Yeah. What what was the most interesting experience you've had with an entity during an interaction?
Oh, this is a funny one. It's funny, not funny. I went to another home locally to investigate the usual haunting stuff. People are seeing shadow figures. A 6-year-old child was saying that at nighttime she could hear somebody yelling in the house, but nobody else could hear it, and that shadow people were leaning over her as she was sleeping. So I took that pretty seriously, and I went right over to investigate it.
Yeah.
When I got to the home, When I walked, it was like an old craftsman house. So when I
Yeah.
walked in, this is a pretty standard setup. And I walked in, and this big, like 6'3" entity was standing in front of me, but he's not scary. He's like a gentleman. He's dressed nice.
Yeah.
Um, and he was like, this ghost, he says to me, "Are you here for all the noise upstairs?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Listen, there's this woman up there and she will not shut up. I can't take it." And this is this ghost talking to me. I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "Just be careful up there." All right. Thanks for the advice. I appreciate it, ghost. So I walk upstairs, and sure enough, this is where it gets. Listen, trigger warning for anybody. This is a little
Yeah.
sensitive, but I'll lighten it up quickly. I go upstairs, and upstairs I see a hallway. At the end of the hallway, there's a tiny little bathroom, and the bathroom, I am psychically looking at this, is just covered in blood, and there's a woman inside screaming. And I immediately know that this is a room that they performed abortions in,
Yeah.
like a very long time ago. And this woman and many others I'm watching, I can see this is a thing that for some reason this was the house. Maybe the guy was a doctor or something, or
Yeah.
um, fancied himself one. So I had to speak with this screaming woman and try to console her. And basically, I came to terms with her and I said, everything's going to be okay. Again, the babies are on the other side. They're okay. You're forgiven. Go ahead. So she, after like maybe an hour of like this kind of conversation in my head with her, she
Yeah.
subsides and we're good. I go back downstairs, and the tall gentleman is like, "Oh, good, she's quiet. Can I talk to you real quick?" And I was like, "Okay." And he goes, "There's a drainage issue in the backyard with when it rains. Can you tell the homeowner?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then he goes, "Okay." The ghost is like, "Come on outside with me. I want to show you something." So I'm looking at the
It's
homeowner,
like
and I'm
a
like, "This
homeowner.
guy, this guy has got to think I'm like like, why did I bring this guy on my property?" So I'm like, but he's listening. So he's like, "Fine, we'll go outside." We go outside, and two things. Around the property are all these really tall pine trees, but some of them have been cut down or cut in half. And the tall ghost says, number one, tell the homeowner that if he replants bushes or something for those trees, all of the haunting will stop. Those trees were planted for memorials for soldiers who died. So
Aw.
it's upsetting the land. So tell him to replant something for those trees he killed, and mostly everything will stop. So I told the homeowner that, and he was satisfied with that. And then I was like, "Okay, so what's the deal with the water drainage then?" And he goes, "Well, I'm not sure if the homeowner is aware, but I'm buried right here underneath your feet. Can you tell him that I'm here and that's why the water's not draining?" And I was like, "Okay." So I looked at this guy and I was like, "Sir," I was like, "Do you know there's a guy buried here?" And the homeowner, his two kids were standing there. They were like 15 and 16 maybe. And he looks at the two kids and he goes, "Go away." And he just sends the kids away. And he looks at me. He goes, "Not even my wife knows that there is somebody buried here." He said when he bought the house, the family had to divulge that on the
Yeah.
mortgage, or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, and basically the same thing. He was like, "I thought you were full of shit until you told me that you knew there was somebody buried here. There's no marker. There's nothing." So
Yeah.
he's like, "Yeah, there's a guy buried here." And I was like, "This is him. He does not hurt anybody in the house. He's here. He likes the house. Like, you're doing a great job." And he just wanted to let you know to replant the trees so that all the haunting stops.
That's
And
so
that was,
crazy.
isn't that crazy?
That is nuts. But I love the interaction. Like, so when you're doing these, do you see them or do you hear them?
Both. So I don't ever, not ever, but normally I don't physically see anything. It's all in here, and
Okay.
I'll hear them and see them. Sometimes I feel their emotion, or
Yeah.
whatever it is that they need to convey to me to help them.
Yeah. Um. So how did you picture this gentleman?
Oh, well, since I'm a big TV nerd, and
Great.
ladies, you might like this. You ever watch the TV show Gilmore Girls? Or how
I
and
think so.
and if not, have you ever watched oh crap, now it's what's the
I'm
vampire?
picturing Ray's brother from Everyone Loves Raymond.
Almost, yeah. So he's really tall, but he's an older gentleman. So he looks
Oh, okay.
like a little, maybe like Herman Munster, or
Boris Karloff.
that, yeah, like that kind of guy. Super super sweet dude, gentleman, like 6'3", like just a nice dude. And that was him.
Six, 60s, 70s attire?
Probably earlier
Like
than that, the way
suits?
he was appearing,
Yeah.
like probably like 40s to 50s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you have the high the high pants.
Yep. And that's how
That's
he was
crazy.
dressed.
That's so cool.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. My next question would be: do you know an investigator, or have you ever gone into a place you know this individual, but had to bring in a relative or distant relative to quash the activity? Because I wonder if it would stop. Let's say if there's a great grandfather, and the family's moved on for the last 100 and some odd years,
Hmm.
and then there's this activity to bring back a family member or descendant, basically to settle the issue.
Sure. I have not had to do that, but I would not do that if it called for it. I would figure out how to make that happen. That's a great question because I think that that could be something that could be, a family issue that needs to be settled within the family. So that's a
or
really good question.
or even to stop it, be like, hey, this is your great grandson or granddaughter,
Yeah.
and they're here to help. And then just like imagine, in my mind, the shock that would bring, and the how it would just settle
Yeah.
stuff. you
I've
know
never had to do that, but I would if it would help for sure. I I'm a big fan of trying anything and everything if it helps the person who's asking for help.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
that's a
awesome.
that was a good question. You're good at this.
No, props like these questions. I'll do this with all my friends. I'll ask questions. I'll try to think very hard. Um, Non-entity, um, spirit, most
Hmm.
dangerous experience.
Non-entity spirit most dangerous. There's a horse farm here locally. It's I don't want to call it a farm, but it's a boarding home for horses.
Yeah,
And I got called there for activity that people couldn't explain. And basically, I showed up there in the daytime. I didn't feel much from the property at the time, but it was one of those weird places where the sun set and it completely changed on me. It went from being a very comfortable place to like I felt like I wanted to leave, which is not like me because I'm not a clear.
yeah,
I mean, maybe not clearly, but I'm not afraid of the dark. Um,
yeah.
so that happened, and as that happened, I met some nice spirits that were on the land. These folks that probably were people who worked for board on the property. And just like the other spirit at the other house, these two basically were like, "Are you here for it?" And I said, "Well, what is it?" And they were like, "The thing, but we don't talk about it too much because we don't want to make it mad. It'll come after us." And I was like, "I guess that's why I'm here." So they told me that I should be looking for like murdered cats, like animals turned inside out.
Ooh,
Um, and I'm trying to think of some of the. They said some very interesting things. But it's been a while since I've thought about this.
yeah.
But basically, they were like, tell the people here that the animals that they're finding dead are not from coyotes or foxes. This thing is doing it. And then they said, talk about the horse that just died. And one of the spirits guided me over to an empty stall in one
Yeah.
of the barns and was like, "This horse just died. Tell them that that you know that." And I said, "Okay." So they're telling me this horse just died, and I was like, "Well, why did it die?" And the woman told me that it had a very rare disease that it developed called head shaker's disease, where it basically shook its head until its brain rattled in its head and passed away.
Okay.
The horse had only been boarded there for 6 weeks. It was healthy when it got there. It slowly but surely developed this issue, and then it passed away.
Okay.
And that was part of the reason why I was there because of the animals were getting sick. Then um, the two spirits were like, "Okay, we have to go. We're telling you too much." So as that happens, they leave, and I get the impression of a very dark, nasty black dog that is walking around the property, and it's very vicious looking to me. And I know it's trying to scare me. So, anybody who's not familiar, you see a black dog that doesn't belong to you, that you think is paranormal, walk the other
Get
way.
away from it.
Yeah.
Basically,
So,
Astorville for the most part.
right. Um, so I bring this up to the people who live on the property, and they say that their 6-year-old son has been talking about that dog, but they didn't know what to make of it because they don't have any dogs. And they
Yeah.
weren't thinking ghost or paranormal. So I brought it up, and they're like, "That's exactly what Liam has been telling us about. This is the ghost, this dog." And I was like, "Yeah, that's part of it." So, in any case, we brought our ghost hunting equipment up there the next night, and we it's just tough to talk about. It was a very intense investigation.
Yeah.
Um, for anybody who doesn't know, we use REM pods, which are just basically round hockey puck looking things with antennas on them and lights. They emit their own EMF, and if anything gets close to the bubble, it sets off the lights on the EMF on the REM pod. Um, we set up one of those in the stall where the horse died, and it immediately started going off. The equipment actually ended up breaking. I had to bring it to an electrical engineer to be repaired. Whatever was in there maxed it out. Um, and it had told me in passing in those certain terms that if I was to come back, it would come after me and my family. It was unhappy. So we pack up. We're done with it because it's too intense for us, and we let them know that if they don't taunt it, they should be okay. That doesn't happen. The woman who called us there, who lives there, kept taunting it, and eventually she became basically what I would call possessed or oppressed to the point of almost possession. And she ended up losing her family, becoming addicted to alcohol and drugs, and left. They lost the property, and that was it until actually just about, I don't know, maybe about a year ago. Another person called me who had a horse there who had no idea that it had ever been investigated for the paranormal. She said that several times at nighttime while she was grooming her horse or feeding it, she would see another horse get out of another barn, walk out, and as she would get up closer to the horse so she could take it and put it back where it belonged, the horse would shrink down to the size of a dog and run away. And she said it happened multiple times. And the last time that happened, she got so freaked out that she needed to call somebody. And my name pops up a lot. So she
Yeah.
called me. I went up there. It seemed calm, but I told her, don't mess with it. If you see that again, don't acknowledge it and just leave it alone.
See,
Um,
those
pretty bad.
those are the reasons why I totally, as a Ghostbuster fan, those are the entities I'd be more than happy to eliminate, right,
Right.
or capture. Um, and you deal with EMF, right? So there's the Ghostbuster community is filled with a lot of skeptics and a lot of enthusiasts.
Yep, for sure.
We have a theory that EMP would be able to disperse it, but you gotta almost have it within a Tesla cage and then magnetize it afterwards.
That would make sense.
So
Like,
essentially, if I were to show you the ghost trap, which is around here somewhere, right here, this is super magnets all the way around. It's basically like a stator in a starter. So when this opens up, it shoots off massive EMPs, controls it in one direction, and then pulls the basically the energy, the protons, neutrons, and electrons inside, and then you close it, and it's a Faraday cage around it.
that makes
So it's
sense.
energized and it's locked, right? So I'm like, Dan Aykroyd came up with this. This makes sense. Why hasn't anybody tried this? You know,
Maybe I will.
I've seen the effects. I've seen the effects of EMP that energy gives off, and yeah, stuff does get pretty active. So in theory, or EMP should disperse. So if the entity is getting too strong, you can send out micropulses, which would keep it away from you.
Yeah, that's a good theory. We could probably come up with something to test that. And I know just the place. It's only 10 minutes from me.
Yeah,
Somebody asked me why I thought it was there. The town that I live in was founded in 1615. Um, it was one of the first places that the English colonized, and basically they came over here and they immediately started knocking off the Native American population. It went from millions to hundreds of thousands to none. And the particular town that I live in was the Lenni Lenape called it heaven because it was such a beautiful area. And there is not even so much as a tiny burial ground for them here. So I believe that while they were being eliminated and removed from this land, that they left something behind in order to curse the land, basically. Because there's several spots like that in our town where really nasty entities are, and they really do a number to the residents here. And a lot of times, since I'm one of the most active investigators in the area, I get the call. And luckily, that's good because I have the experience and I already have an idea of what might be happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think, yeah, in the long run, I think that's what happened. And I do not think that a demonologist could help because I don't know that it's a demon. It could be something that is a Lene Lenape curse. And who am I to remove something that they put in or try? That's not,
Yeah.
I just want to bring relief to the people who are experiencing it, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to undo a generational curse. That's
Well,
not happening.
this is kind of going back into more investigation between spirits, right? There's religious spirits, then there's land spirits, right?
Yep. Hmm.
And land spirits, I can see doing that too, but they're far. If you really get a land spirit going, I think that's what happened out in Frank back in 1905. They were warned by the natives, do not build a town. We call it the Talking Mountain. They didn't listen. There's two mines on either side going down under the mountain, and it fell, right?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
probably why.
what was it? I think because yet again with this mind phobia that I had, which is ironic that you brought that video back up. Uh, Western Canada's biggest mining disaster happened 10 years later from the mine that was on one side of the Turtle Mountain, which lost 135 miners.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's it's like I like your stories because that like I'm picturing the Michigan Dogman or the was it there's another spirit in what was it something more the dog more something in it's in UK. It's basically like the Hound of Baskerville. Same thing,
Right.
black dog, huge, almost pony esque. That will just go really insanely quick, and it just goes around and takes care of things, such. Um,
Yeah.
but to really understand like nature spirit versus like a curse or a demon or what have you, I think demons are very, very intellectual. They know what they want,
Yeah,
and
that's
they'll
something
let you know.
I like the so my one of my very best friends that I grew up with, he's a demonologist and it's funny that we grew up together playing Ghostbusters in the backyard. We kind of went our separate ways in life
Yeah,
and then we found each other again later on in life and we were just talking and I think we were both a little bit like trepidatious about talking about the paranormal, but then he's like, "Oh yeah, I do this." And I was like, "Shit." I was like, "I do this." And then it was weird how it worked out. And one of the things we talk about is that I don't think demons really like, they don't tell people they're there. They will, like, they'll pick one person and attack them, attack them, attack them. And then when somebody is like, and when that person is like, I think I'm being attacked by a demon or something like this, um, everybody else will be like, not see the symptoms as that. And they'll
yeah.
just and it's a weird dynamic and it almost always happens that way, so people need to be very careful when they talk about these things. One, we always want to check for mental health first, obviously,
Yeah.
and then um, you know, go through everything very carefully with a fine-tooth comb and do really good interviews because demons are very tricky. They will oppress and destroy a life and they won't let anybody know they're doing it until it's too late for the most part, so got to be careful.
So what? I'm just trying to think here. How about those instances where we've watched numerous shows, and it's very few and far between, even some footage that we've all watched the chills. or Nuke's top five and stuff like that. You can see the bogus to the truth. Those growling ones in a high poltergeist activity, I believe, like there's a small chance of actual entity being in there of somebody who's passed, but I would say it's very small margin.
Funny you should bring up the Chills top five. I have a video maybe about a year ago or two with them.
Yeah,
We made it on their list, and there's growling. It's very interesting. So the homeowner told us that there was uh growling happening in the house. He set up CCTV to disprove any haunting, and he collected so much paranormal evidence that he was like, I need to have somebody come in here that's not me and figure out what's going on, because it's not normal stuff that's going on. In any case, um, before we could even get the investigation going, we had a camera running just to get going, and we're sitting there. We hear a growl come from upstairs, and then the front door opens, and
yeah.
then it slams shut. And it's a screen door, but like one of the heavy glass ones. Yeah. So the door just opens up and then slams shut. And we're all like, what the hell is going on here? We couldn't figure it out. Um, but that entire house was all growling, strange black anomalies. Uh, and the scariest thing that happened was that the child who lived there um, said that he was asleep in bed, and he woke up and his stepdad was standing over him in his bedroom. And he said, Dad, why are you standing over me? Like, what's up? And the dad doesn't say anything. He's just staring at him. And the kid gets the real uneasy feeling like, shit, this isn't my dad. So he runs past this guy down the steps, it's a very small house. He runs right down the steps, and his mom and his stepdad are on the couch watching TV.
Yeah,
And he's bawling his eyes out. And he's like, you were just upstairs. How could you get down here before me? And the stepdad's like worried that there's somebody actually like an intruder in the house. He runs upstairs, nobody there.
yeah,
Um, so that was the straw that broke the camel's back. After he collected all this data, couldn't figure it out. The kid has this terrible, crazy vision of a doppelganger, basically.
yeah,
Um, and that was it. And that happened to be one of those houses like you were just talking about.
yeah,
The haunting seemed to be happening because it was a house that was owned for like 200 years by the same family, and the family moved away, and they were
yeah,
renting it out to this family, and the spirits in the house were protecting the house. So we actually had to have a conversation and just say, your family members gave these people permission to be here. You got to stop scaring them, and it
yeah.
stopped. Yeah. It was just that easy.
Really?
Yeah.
So who is growling?
This like angry old man that apparently died in like the late 1800s from like what the hell is that? TB? Is that right?
Yeah,
Tuberculosis.
tuberculosis. Yeah,
And the growling, I think, was just his deep, nasty lungs kind of
oh,
replaying. Yeah. So once I had a conversation with him about it, and I was just like, look, your family gave them permission to be here. You gotta stop. It all stopped. Just that easy.
that's crazy.
Just a conversation.
That's
Yeah. We
crazy.
didn't
So
need
you
proton
haven't
packs for that
seen
one.
like an entity, dark, malevolent, scary things, that type of deal.
Just sometimes. They're not that common.
What
Usually it's
are
just
they?
human
Do you
spirits that
think?
are pissed. Um, I don't know. See, I haven't come across. If I come across something that I think is a demon, I back up because that's not my forte. I'll get somebody who knows how to deal with that. Like my buddy Brian,
Gotcha.
he has a whole team. They do their thing. Um,
Gotcha.
that like with the Native American thing, like that, I'm just kind of there to tell you what I see and what's going on. And if it's a person, like a human spirit, and I can reason
Yeah.
with them, we can walk them on their way. But I don't force anybody to go. I don't do any religious ceremonies or anything like that. So I don't know what they are. They're all different kinds of things, and maybe they're not all ghosts. Like I said earlier, sometimes it could just be stuff that's interfering from another timeline or
Yeah.
another dimension or something we just don't understand yet. So
Amazing.
yeah, you have a lot of
Um,
good questions.
I got a lot. We can definitely do multiple. If you ever want me to ask you questions, and never mind, you got these wonderful people that are watching on here as well. Um, we can get into a lot of stuff because have you ever, of course, you're in mediumship, you're in paranormal investigation. So have you investigated into multi-dimensional or string theory?
I read about it. I pretend like I understand what it is. Um,
Yeah.
I I have some very intelligent friends who try to break it down for me as best they can so my feeble mind can understand it. I believe that there is something to quantum entanglement. I think that there is some
Yeah.
sort of um, relationship there. The I believe in the multidimensional theory. I think that some scientists at Rutgers came up and they think the universe stacks up into like 26 separate um,
So
dimensions and all that stuff. So,
so if you're going to talk to Dan Aykroyd, research that. Highly recommend. The reason why is it seems to be an ongoing question. I've been reading this as it keeps on going down. Is you hear the story about spirit being trapped either by a curse or multiple spirits being trapped by another entity,
hmm
or it's dark in here, or and then you got to help them cross over. So there is all, like, looking at this from a science and research point of view, but there's a version of almost like purgatory where it's either acceptance that you're dead or you are not done learning yet something, right? Then
yeah,
there's the actual plane where we were talking about land spirits, right? Or and then there's another one where it's curses, but those veils are so thin. I think they just interact with one another. They're almost on the same plane, and
hmm
it's really insanely just fascinating because this all entwines with everything. Because I'll do science, I'll do paranormal investigation, and I'll do religion from multifacets, not just one,
yep,
multiple. Because I think near death experiences, you hear pearly gates. I saw nothing. Well, nothing, or I saw people in a dark room. Okay, so that's that purgatory realm. So then we get into all this dimensional theory stuff, and I
yep,
just find it incredibly fascinating on how like science is slowly starting to come back to a spirituality of some sort, right? Where it's just
yep,
like, yes, this stuff does exist. Yes, energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but it's sentient. So I think once we get down to they do their investigation on like sentient thinking entities, I think everybody's just gonna it's gonna blow their mind, man.
and it should. We it's so fascinating the amount of everybody watching this has the capability to close their eyes and see somebody that they love in their imagination for the most
Yeah,
part, as long as they don't suffer from that aphantasia nonsense. But even if you can't see them, you can hear them. And if you think it's just a memory of them, it's not. They're
yeah,
there. It's just got to be something that you believe that you're doing. And that's
yeah,
where, when I first started doing all of my mediumship, it's not like I just, for everybody watching, if you don't know, I didn't just wake up one day and be like, I'm a medium. I actually had a really profound experience when I was like 32. And I heard a voice in my head and I was like, oh shit, I'm going crazy. Um, but I wrote down all the information that I heard this voice tell me. And then any of the pictures in my imagination that I knew were not mine, I wrote down a description of them. And I tried to disprove the information by going to the person they related to. And the woman was like, no, this is all information about my dad. You're describing his mother,
yeah,
you were describing an event that just happened,
yeah,
and it's undeniable that this is exactly what you're talking about. So I many times tried to disprove what I was doing until it got to the point where I couldn't disprove it anymore. So
Yeah.
now it's just the way it is. It's just
So,
the
and Tamarelle's bringing it up here that she feels the exact same thing. I think she's got a way thinner veil than I do. I think I'm hypersensitive. I have better interaction with spirit through dreams than I do on plane, unless it's a physical. It's usually emotional, but I can't get anything else besides that. And plus, I haven't had a mentor or anything to just kind of hone that stuff in. So my it's
I
closed.
I got you. It's all about meditation. For anybody who has those really vivid dreams and you don't do it consciously during the day, um, I would say that you just need to learn how to meditate, whatever that is for you. So let's just take something that you do. All your gear that you have, did you build all that?
Which Ghostbuster stuff?
Yeah,
For the most part, like
right.
the actual containment unit was built by a carpenter in our group. The proton pack, I built a portion of that. I actually got to do massive repair of that because the gentleman who owned it prior, really, he's like, oh, the comic expo's right around the corner. Glue, random screws. It's done. So I'm like,
Got it.
it's falling apart. It's not supposed to do that. But yeah,
So
no,
when you go to repair that and you're doing the work like painting it and it's not anything that you really have to think about and you're kind of just in the zone of doing it,
yeah,
be conscious of the thoughts that you're having beyond that task
yep,
because that is when the people on the other side will talk to you. It's when your best thoughts come. Like, those funny things like shower thoughts, and they're
yeah,
usually pretty brilliant, but also kind of silly at the same time.
yeah.
That if you could put that to somebody from your past that has passed away coming to talk to you and write and retain that information and write it down and validate it, you'll realize that you're doing it all the time.
Okay,
People do it while they're driving. They do it while they're reading. They do it while they're washing the dishes. What if you have a job that doesn't require too much mental focus, like me most of the time? It's just an ability to just drift away and think and look at the things that are coming through. Like even as I just close my eyes now and I'm just like, well, what's out there as I'm talking to you? It's really silly what I'm seeing. Uh,
no,
do you know what a grappling hook, like a shuriken
oh yeah,
grappling hook?
yeah,
So like I'm seeing just like why is that there? So there's a good chance that somebody here would understand why I would see that. Somebody's talking to me about throwing a grappling hook and climbing up the side of a building. Does that mean they just watched a movie where that happened? Did they just talk about that subject with somebody? Are they really into ninjas or something? I don't know, but it's a part of what is just there in my consciousness, and it's not my thought because none of that is stuff I'm super interested in.
yeah. Not me. Um, I'll
So
get that a little bit. And Tamarol says that must be just me opening up, and they're all blurting. So it's like customer service at the DMV, Tamarol. As soon as you open the shroud, they're all gonna talk at once.
that's what they do. So you have to learn how to say, everybody get in a line, one at a time. What do you want to say? Who are you? What do you want to say? That's it. And then you'll get better and better at it. And then you'll just be able to do it.
Yeah.
So,
I think for the most part, it's mainly family. Um, like I'm a heavy duty mechanic by trade, so I spend a lot of time in my head, a lot of time driving around. So there's a lot of conversations just with myself.
yep,
But sometimes it's just like a random song will pop on while I'm having just kind of like trying to plan out the day, stuff like that. And it's just
yep.
like this is a conversation piece that I'd be having with my stepfather right now, or this would be something like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
excuse me, that's them. That's them talking.
yeah,
100%. It's not just an imagination thing that's happening. It's that moment for them to step in when there's nothing else happening and they could just talk. So that's a beautiful thing that you got going on.
I like that. You get lectured a lot.
Well, I always tell people it's not always great stuff they need to tell us. Sometimes they want to tell us that we don't know what the hell we're doing, and
No,
that's a guide.
I think my feeling. because I'm hypercritical with myself, and it kind of stems from my stepdad. But I think it was a great grandfather, somebody who I didn't meet, super hypercritical, and that comes through, and that's when I start getting upset and stuff like that, and just like,
Yeah.
and then I'll just go for a walk.
So that's when you got to tell them to bug off, and we have the ability to do that too. So if somebody's coming through that you don't want to talk to, just tell them to leave you alone, and they will.
Yeah, yeah,
They're just being a pain in the ass,
yeah.
you know.
It's hypercritical. Only want the best, right?
And that's
I,
something
I,
also.
I I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just saying, don't be hypercritical of yourself when it comes to the mediumship stuff, or learning all the spiritual stuff, because we only think we're right. We only
Yeah,
think we know what we know, right? So just as long as you're trying to do it in good faith and not lead people down the wrong path of using it for something nefarious, do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's good.
No, I was meaning more or less like in my everyday work, right? I will be hypercritical on a certain aspect of, you know, paperwork or the task at hand or time management or something like that, right? So old school necessities is like, you keep on doing this, what's going on, man? Like that's what I'm getting. It's just like, dude, you're doing the definition of insanity, right?
Yep.
And that's coming through to me, and I'm like, and then I'll say it out loud, and I was just like, but I had such a great morning. What's going on? Like, why am I
Why? Why
getting
am I
this all of a
folding
sudden?
now?
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's when you need to take a break, and that's where meditation will come in handy, because
yeah,
if you can take 5 minutes to step away from that frustration and work it out real quick without having to, um, smoke a cigarette or have a drink or caffeine, if you can just take a minute and be like, why do I feel this way? I was having a good day. Is there somebody else talking to me that's really pissing me off or giving me information I don't need? Or am I doing this to myself? Okay, I'm being really hard on myself. There's no reason for that. I don't need to do that. And just talk yourself through it so you can have a better day. That's all.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
anything you want to know about Ghostbusters?
I
Have you seen
feel
Ghostbusters Afterlife?
like a
Yeah.
million times. Come on. Not really. I don't know that I'm as much an aficionado as you are, but I am certain. Come on. Not really. I don't know that I'm as much an aficionado as you are, but I am certainly up there.
Okay.
Well past the rookie
Okay.
stages.
Okay.
Let's see.
Since I had the lovely opportunity to work on set, yes, sir.
Hang
So
on, my
why is
stuff
the
back there.
outfit? Oh, you got the jumpsuit too. I saw the
Oh
jumpsuit.
yeah.
So we need you
Oh
on
yeah.
TikTok, Scotty. We need it
Yeah,
on the
I got all my gear. I'm missing
perfect.
some elbow pads. That's about all I need. And
GB
a
fans.
belt gizmo.
You getting your belt
I get,
tomorrow?
no, my gizmo. I don't have a
Oh,
gizmo. I need
okay. So
that's next.
So Dan Aykroyd finally explained the gizmo.
Well, tell me about it because I don't know what it is. Everybody get ready.
Okay, so the gizmo is essentially if you don't have one of these,
Hmm.
it's a possession meter. So if the entity is getting close to possession, it will start going crazy with the lights, and the buster that's wearing it is possessed.
No kidding.
Yes,
That's a cool. I like that.
it makes sense.
I need one for real. That
Nobody
man
knew what
really,
it was for.
he really
What's
did
that?
think of everything. He thought of
Oh,
everything.
well, it's just like he's thought right down to the uh, not cellular, but right down to the atoms, the muons, and
Bosons and all that. Yeah. It's
yeah, it's
crazy,
just
right?
it's absolutely like stasis. If you were to be able to somehow like a lot of this, just isolating those particles, in theory, technically, they're right. You could freeze like if the let's say that dog that you saw, okay, came at you and you hit it with a stasis beam, it would slow right down, right?
Right.
Then you hit with the EMP, disperse, right?
Right.
But just like a bad case of Dracula from Buffy in the 90s, it will
It'll
reform
come
again.
back together. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
so
It's an
crazy though.
it's all very interesting. That's why when I speak to people who are very religious, and I don't try to, I learned very early, I'm not here to take away anybody's beliefs or truths. I'm
Yeah.
just here to talk about my own stuff. I just understand that everything can't be cured with the sign of the cross, unfortunately. There have to be different tools for different
Oh
um,
yeah.
entities in different situations, and it's very important to respect everybody's beliefs as you go through all this stuff. That's why when people ask me about demons or Native American stuff, there could be even stuff that we don't even understand is there that's happening. So we have
Right.
to be very open to it as it's going on, you know?
And it goes from country to country, culture to culture too, right?
Exactly.
So
I even ran into something that identified itself as a jinn. That was terrifying a family.
what?
Somebody's saying, Jenna Bell says, "What do I know about possessed dolls or items?" Well, I'm glad you asked because the very thing that started off this entire conversation is that this evening I was on Travel Channel on a haunting, the television show, which is also available on Discovery Plus, and the very topic was about how I sense the negative energy in a possessed item, a doll, namely. So it was interesting.
Wait,
Another
wait,
thing I wish I could trap.
which one was this? Was this Annabelle?
No, it was a doll. Gretchen, I think, is the name
Okay,
of the
I've
doll.
I've heard of Gretchen. Yeah.
So that is something that I got involved with by accident.
Yeah.
And I'm not big on like haunted items. Like I
Yeah.
very rarely have come across them.
Yeah.
And somebody asked me to do a psychic reading on a set of dolls that they acquired, and super haunted, really bad. Um,
Yeah.
They had to have a demonologist build a special box like the Annabelle box. Actually, the
Yeah.
same guy who built the Annabelle box built the box for this doll.
Huh.
Yeah, so
So
it's contained
it's
in
got
there.
that ointment in there, and
Yep,
it's sealed.
sealed. Yep,
That's
everything.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like I never, I like. Don't get me wrong. Don't call me like I'm not a skeptic because there was obviously imprinting on the stuff that I got here, which I found humorously amusing when I moved it and stuff started happening. Um, it's kind of hard to believe that a doll, a dark entity, will attach itself to a doll.
So basically, what happened was I had the impression that somebody intentionally took this item. Well, you use Slimer for now,
Yeah,
and basically did rituals to the item in order to force the negative energy onto it or into it or however that works. And
yeah,
I saw him using like holy oil, but in a
yeah,
negative way. Like I called it a reverse baptism is how I felt about it. So they were literally jamming negative shit into it. And then he harassed the spirit that he eventually got attached to it, and it turned into this super negative, nasty thing.
yeah. That's crazy that you can channel that much into such an item. You know.
Yeah. I
Uh,
see my buddy Best Holistic Life, who I'm right thank gave me an opportunity to write an article for their magazine. I'm super
yeah,
excited to do that. What do you do when you encounter bad energy? I basically try to understand what it is, what it why I think it's bad because everything is perspective. Um, some things just are bad because they're annoying us or causing grief in our life, but that's just the perspective we have, and it may not necessarily be bad. So we have to
yeah,
really investigate it, understand where it came from, why it's there, and then decide what to do with it from there.
yeah.
But I don't ever make a snap judgment like rubbing holy oil on something that wouldn't do anything for anyway. So
Are you guys getting a 15-second delay? Because I can pop out of here because I know how weird it is because it looks like a really bad foreign film that you can't really
um,
make it out. You're like, what's going on here?
actually, this is a good time for me to say it is 20 after 1 in the morning, and it
Okay.
is about time for me to hit the hay. But
Okay.
I have enjoyed our conversation, and we're going to do this again at an earlier hour,
Yes,
and
sir.
we'll let everybody know when we're going to do it. Maybe I'll put on my suit, you can put on your suit.
Let's do
We'll
it.
have a good time. We'll talk about all this stuff
You
a
give
little bit more.
You give me a time and I'll be there.
Awesome. Dude, I totally appreciate you coming on with me tonight. This is such a blast. And you
I'm
got Props of
honored. Thank
History
you.
stop by my live stream?
Yeah, you're gonna look and you've been followed.
No, I haven't.
Yes, you have. You
Oh
let me
my
know.
God.
You
I
hop
will.
off here and let me know.
All right, I will. Everybody who's been hanging out with me tonight, and you want to tell everybody where you're at?
Where I'm from?
Yeah,
What?
tell yeah, tell them to follow you.
Yeah, just I'm TikTok Ghostbuster. Do Ghostbuster stuff, humorous and serious, a little bit, and paranormal enthusiast, and from Canada. So
In
come follow
Canada.
me. My followers, go follow Scotty. Super awesome, very educational, and super supportive.
Thank you very much. It was such a great night. Everybody have fun, and I'll see you on the next one.
Okay, take care.